Hello everyone, and welcome to the South Hill Compost Channel. Thank you for your supportive comments. I really appreciate all the amazing support everyone has shown for this channel, and it helps me keep creating all this educational and learning content for everyone to enjoy. Today's video is a simple guide to vermicomposting. Vermicompost is the product of earthworm digestion and aerobic decomposition using the activities of micro and macroorganisms at room temperature. Vermicomposting, or worm composting, produces a rich organic soil amendment containing a diversity of plant nutrients and beneficial microorganisms. There are several benefits for vermicomposting, but the two most popular are diverting organic residuals from the landfill and creating resources from waste materials. Vermicomposting can be a fun activity for school-aged children, and vermicompost can be utilized in gardens to promote plant growth. Vermicompost can be mixed with potting media at a rate of 10% by volume, or else added directly into your garden soil. Both options will provide plants with valuable organic matter, nutrients, and a diversity of beneficial microbes. Typical earthworms that you find in your garden are not suitable for vermicomposting. These are soil-dwelling worms that do not process large amounts of food waste and don't reproduce well in confined spaces. Instead, worms commonly known as redworms or red wigglers are preferred because they reproduce rapidly, are communal, and tend to remain on the surface while feeding. There are several species of vermicomposting worms, but the most common are Eisenia fetida and Eisenia andrae. Red wigglers are hermaphrodites, having both male and female reproductive parts. However, it still requires two worms to mate, with each worm donating sperm to the other worm. Under ideal conditions, a worm bin population can double about every 2 months. It's 4 to 6 weeks from cocoon to emergence and 6 to 8 weeks from emergence to maturity. The band around the worm, known as the clitellum, indicates maturity and is reproductively active. Cocoons are about the size of a matchstick head, turning pearly white to brown as they develop until one to several baby worms hatch. Red wigglers require similar conditions to humans for growth. They prefer room temperatures of 55 to 85 degrees and adequate moisture. The population of a worm bin is controlled through nutrient or food availability and space requirements. There are several bins that can be used to raise earthworms. Some of the more common are plastic bins of various sizes. Worm bins can be made of wood, but cedar should never be used as it contains antimicrobial properties. Commercial bins can also be purchased online. Bins made from 1 to 2 inch thick styrofoam have proven to be a suitable alternative to plastic bins, with the added advantage of better insulation, and can be acquired for free from fish or pet supply stores. Smaller bins are fitting for those just starting out, but will restrict population growth, while larger bins, usually 18 inches wide, 24 inches long, and 18 inches deep, are typical for larger worm populations. Bins should be well ventilated, containing numerous holes on the bottom and at least one row of holes along the top of the bin. Larger holes can be cut in the lid of the bin, but should have a piece of cloth taped over the top to discourage fruit flies. Worm bins should be raised off the ground with long stakes so that air may flow under the bin. Fill about half of the bin with moist, shredded cardboard to use as bedding, and then add a handful of garden soil, which will inoculate the bin with microorganisms and sand or eggshells that the worms can use in their gizzard to grind food. Now add the worms. Worms can be purchased online. Beginners can easily get away with 1,000 worms for new bins, but need to remember that smaller populations will take more time to digest food waste. Place the bin in a cool, dark location with minimal temperature fluctuations, will not freeze or become excessively hot during the summer. Basements are typical locations, but under a kitchen sink is also suitable. Worms benefit from the fewest disturbances possible, kind of like beneficial neglect. For instance, worms dislike light, and each time the lid opens, the worms stop feeding and seek shelter below the surface. With that said, they still require food and water. Moisture is often supplied with food waste. More moisture can be added if needed using a spray bottle. Feed the worms leftover fruits and vegetables and other kitchen prep waste. Place the food under the shredded cardboard. One tip to prevent overfeeding is to feed smaller amounts every 1 to 2 weeks, with each amount placed in a different location in a circle around the bin. This will allow you to see how well the worms are digesting the food from the previous feeding. Be sure to observe what food materials are preferred so that you can customize the feed. Do not feed worms meat, dairy, fatty, oil, or fermented products, as these will attract pests, harmful bacteria, foul odors, and cause the worms to leave the bin. In general, worms will consume a wide variety of food materials, but be sure not to provide too much of one material at any one feeding. Moist shredded cardboard will need to be replaced throughout the life of the worm bin so that the food waste is always covered. This will prevent fly nuisances and reduce issues with odors. As the worms consume food waste, they excrete dark, almost black cast, or worm poop, which is a product of vermicomposting. Castings are dense in nutrients and microorganisms and are highly regarded for plant production. At some point, the bin will become overwhelmingly full of castings and will need to be harvested. A simple method for harvesting castings and separating worm castings is to use the dump and sort method. Dump the contents of the bin on a tarp under a lit environment. Separate undigested material from the finished material and place the finished material in several small cone-like shapes. Over time, the worms will flee from the light and migrate to the center of the cone. So slowly scrape away worm-free castings from the top and sides of the cones until the worms are visible again. Eventually, the worms will have migrated to the bottom middle of the cone and you are left with a small pile of worms. Put the worms back in the bin and begin feeding again. It's not uncommon for experienced vermicomposters to lose a colony of worms from time to time. Several causes can lead to worm losses, foul odors, and pest and fly nuisances, but anticipating these issues and quickly troubleshooting back to a balanced worm bin will ensure success. Bins that are too wet may generate foul odors as food materials are being decomposed anaerobically or else encourage fruit fly outbreaks. Bins that are too dry will reduce worm feeding and growth. Shredded cardboard, moist or dry, can be used to control the moisture content of a worm bin. Choosing food waste that is either wet or dry can also help control moisture. Food that is left uncovered is sure to promote fruit flies, which will be a nuisance at home but can easily control using a fruit fly trap. Lastly, avoid overfeeding and especially food materials that should not be put in a worm bin. So with that, I'll wrap up this video for today. I hope that you guys have learned something about vermicomposting and how to keep your worms healthy. These are some good tips that I've learned over time, so I hope that they can help you out too. If you like this video, I hope that you'll subscribe to the channel and give the thumbs up. I thank you all for joining me in supporting the channel. I hope you guys all have a great day, and thank you.